So in this last 35 minutes, we want to do a discussion. Who do the New Testament writers think Jesus is? So if you came to the New Testament and you just asked the question, who is he? The same thing, they're feeding off the Old Testament description of God. So, at the end of the day, the traditional, historically orthodox description of Jesus is that he's fully God and fully man, one person. So he isn't like two computer monitors. He has two natures, but he's only one person. He's experiencing two things at the same time. So where in the world could Christians get an idea like that about God? And most people would come and say this is where they got it. This is how they got a view like that. So in English, if we read this, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, like there's no problem with that whatsoever. God did it. God created. Septuagint, God made. There's no problem. If you read that text in Hebrew, there's a massive problem. And I want to try to help us see it and then see how that's played out in the rest of the Bible. So, this is an old language. In fact, it's so old that it's written from right to left. Evidently, all languages are written right to left if you go far back enough. And the theory is that smart people wrote with their left hand. And in a printed text, you can even see that the Hebrew is favored for somebody who's left-handed. So I'm right-handed, and it's hard as all get out to write in Hebrew because you're constantly smearing and smudging. People who copy Hebrew today have to have a little stick and they rest their hand on it so they can do it. But if you're left-handed, you would write it that way. This is so old that evidently everybody was left-handed. And then something happened in our gene pool where the majority of people switched to right-handed. And lots of languages went from right to left to right. Greek did that. But this is so old it's still written right to left. And this is what it sounds like. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz. Beautiful language. It's so old there's no punctuation marks in the manuscript. There's no capital letters in the manuscript. The oldest complete manuscript we have is this, which is the Leningrad Codex. This was copied in 1008 AD. We're dealing with something really old. But there's a problem when you get to the third word. And I want to try to explain why it's a problem. Every single Hebrew reader who's ever dealt with this text recognizes that there's a massive problem. When we come to this word means in the beginning. So this means in, and this part of the word means head, and this makes it a noun. So in the head or in the beginning. This word means he created. So how many of you taken foreign language? What foreign languages have you had? Spanish?
Arabic.
Arabic. Arabic's very similar, very similar to Hebrew.
I took one Hebrew class. My Arabic helped me out so much.
Yeah, bayat is the same word, or some bait in Arabic is their same Semitic family, and it's written right to left without vowels too, isn't it? Old language. This word is create, but it doesn't just mean create. It can only mean he created. And let me show you why it can only mean he created. So, if you were in a Hebrew class, and you probably remember doing this in Spanish, in Latin, in German. You remember how you had to memorize verb charts? So Latin, amo, amas, amat, amamas, amatis, amat. I love, you love, he, she, or it loves, we love, you love, they love. You know how in Spanish, French, and German they have a little chart that has 6 things. Well, do you see here this stuff in red? This is the same thing. So this is the word kill. For some reason, the paradigm word is not I love like it is in Latin. It's I kill. And it's backwards. It goes from the third masculine. So this is he kills, she kills, you man kill, you woman kill, I kill. They men kill, they women kill, you all men kill, you all women kill, we kill. So do you see what you're doing there in the little red? You're taking the verb and you're just adding stuff to the end, and it makes it he or she. And then this one is, if you want to do it in past tense, he was killing, she was killing, you woman were killing, you man were killing, I was killing, they were killing, that is, they men, they women were killing, you men were killing, you women were killing, we were killing. Do you see how that works? You just add little stuff to the beginning or end. So when you come to this word, create, that can only mean he created. It can't mean she created, they created, I created. It can only mean he did it. So 2 words into the Hebrew Bible, monotheism is established, and the person doing the action is choosing to describe himself as a man versus a woman. And everybody who looks at that word says that's the only thing it can mean. The problem comes with this word. So, if we were studying in a Hebrew class, studying for a midterm that my class in Atlanta is taking even as we speak, they would be filling out this chart. So this is the word horse. A Sus, where we get the word Susan or Susanna from. So this is a male horse. This is a female horse. This is 2 male horses. This is 2 female horses. This is more than 2 horses. So Sus, Susaim, Susim, Susah, Susathaim, Susoth. So that's how you say horse, 2 horses, horses, female horse, which would be a mare, 2 female horses, more than 2 female horses. That little paradigm chart, I could give you a word, like cherub. And if you added this on the end, I-Y-M, eem, that changes it to more than two. So cherub is one. Cherubim would be two cherubs. Cherubim would be more than two cherubs.
Does that come with Elohim?
Sorry?
Would that be like the same as like Elohim, like at the end?
That's exactly the problem. So there's a Hebrew word, Eloah, that means God. Moses uses it in Deuteronomy. It's used all through the Bible. But that's not how God is described. God is described as Elohim. So what's the problem with that?
Singular verb.
I've got a singular verb that should mean he created, but when the he is described, the he is described as Elohim. How would you translate that?
More than two gods.
I mean, it's not a dual, Elohim. It's Elohim, which should be the standard plural. We know that word's a plural because sometimes its modifiers are plural. Matter of fact, and I don't want you to take my word for anything. I want you to be a Berean. I want you to go search the scriptures. But if you just looked at this on an index card, you would say this is the word gods. And in fact, if we look at the phrase other gods, what do you recognize? So this is the phrase other gods. That's exactly the same word. So how do you translate Genesis 1:1? In the beginning, he, that is Elohim. 3 words into the Hebrew Bible, you've got a presenting of God as one, and at the same time more than one. And that word Elohim, I did a lemma search, occurs 6,000 times in the Hebrew Bible. A handful of times it'll have plural verbs with it. Abraham, when he says, God sent me from my home, that's what it means. The problem is when it says sent's in the plural. So you're wondering, is it God sent? Well, that would be if Abraham was a polytheist, but Abraham's not a polytheist. So, I mean, even he doesn't know what kind of modifying word do I use with Elohim. We have sentences that say, the living God, Elohim HaChaim, El Hai, the living God who is the El singular, living singular. It's like, what in the world? I mean, that is on every single page of the Hebrew Bible. That tension between plurality and more basic unity of God. We know that Jews struggled with that. And we know they struggled because we have their translations. These are 3 Targums, Targum Onkelos, Jerusalem, Targum, Pseudo, Jonathan. These are all Jewish works. This one says, in wisdom the Lord created. One says, as wisdom God created. Philo, when he's describing God, he says it's no problem. He says the two cherubs, they're just two powers of God. One's the lordly power, one's the Theos, one's God, one's Lord, and one's the creative, and one's the other power of God. And even though there are two, God's really one. That's somebody who was contemporary, a Jewish person who was contemporary with Jesus who said that. Where else in the Bible do you have this tension between God being one and God being more than one?
The story that came to my mind was when God shows up to Abraham and pronounces that God shows up as three men.
Right. And you think, I got it. It's the Lord and two angels. The problem is all three of them talk at the same time. And it's like, that's weird. And then Yahweh sends the two angels and say, okay, I got it, Yahweh, two angels. And Yahweh goes to heaven, and the two angels go to Sodom and Gomorrah. And then it starts calling one of those angels Yahweh. And it's like, that's weird. And then it says, so Yahweh rained down fire from Yahweh in heaven. It's like, what? And you read it, and that's what it says in Hebrew. Or the burning bush. You've got an angel, but then the angel starts talking like Yahweh. And you got people who see God, and they're seeing an angel. And then you've got God in the pillar of cloud and the angel in whom God's name is. And they swap places. And it's like, okay, where is God? God's name is in this angel? Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm Moses and I'm trying to get people to be monotheists, Elohim is going to be the last term I pick unless there's some really compelling reason for it. Now, you and I can't see this second one. So this Elohim one's 6,000 times. In English, do you know how you have this in your English Bibles? Have you ever wondered why it's in all capital letters? The reason it's in all capital letters is because in the Hebrew text, it's God's name, YHWH. A lot of people will say that's pronounced Yahweh. In the Hebrew, when they add the little vowel so that you can read it, they never put the word Yahweh there. What they do is they put vowels from other words there. And so they're saying, when you get to this, read this other word. Now, are you familiar with the word Jehovah? Okay, so what that is, in Hebrew, it's the word Yahweh. YHWH. So that's God's most sacred name. I just realized that this is going to be what you have. Let me do it in English. It'll make more sense, I think. You have a word in English called Adonai. And it has this letter, and these letters. This looks totally like it doesn't work, but what it is the vowels from this word put in with that word. Let me write it on the board in Hebrew. You can see it in Hebrew easily. So that's the word, my Lord. And these are vowels that they added like 1,200 years after it was written, so that people like me could read it. It's like, if you barely can speak the language in Hebrew, you can buy a newspaper with these vowels, but once you can really read, they don't put the vowels anymore. So people like us never get beyond the vowels. We have to have the vowels. This is because this is a guttural, and that's not a guttural, but Yehovah. So when you see this in the text, they're not telling you read, they're telling read this. And the only reason we have the word Jehovah is because, somebody like me says, oh, it's the word Jehovah. So that's where it came from. And it's Jehovah because German people say Y's as J's. So that's how we get, that probably makes no sense, but anyway, this is God's name. When it has these vowels, Adonai, so I'm saying the word Adonai, what should we ask about Adonai? So I'm seeing this in the text, but I'm saying this. What question?
What form of the word is it?
What form is it? And this is what it is. It's from the word Adon, which means Lord. So we have a question, don't we? What does this little bit do? This little bit makes it my. This little bit makes this word plural. So what does Adonai literally mean? My lords. Every time you come to the Tetragrammaton in the text, what do you say out loud? Which literally would be my lords. So do you know the Shema? Shema Israel, Adonai, Eloheinu. So the new is us, the A is plural from Eloah. Adonai Echad. So that says, "Hear, O Israel, Yahweh, our Elohim." Yahweh is one, but when I won't ever say that as a Jewish person. I'll say, "Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad." The only singular word in the spoken Shema is the word one. Every other one is plural.
Did they? What? I feel like that must have driven them mad.
Doesn't Paul say the word is near you, it's in your mouth? Jews say this 3 times a day. You get up, you say, "Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad." You're walking in the way, you say, "Shema Israel." You go to bed at night, the last thing you say is, "Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad."
What are Jews saying about this today? Like, is it like do they make an argument against this today?
Well, I mean, Sarah does call Abraham Adonai. So Sarah calls Abraham "my lords." I don't know about you men, but your wives, when you walk in the door, say, "My lords, it's great to see you. My lords, have you had a..." But if you laugh, you don't believe me. But if you say it enough, you don't hear it anymore, do you? We know that Adonai is plural because the singular form is Adoni. And that appears in the Hebrew text. Adoni is my Lord, singular. Adonai is my Lord's plural. I mean, I could show you the chart.
So what do they say about the angels? Like, the Hebrew, what do they say about the angels in the context?
Until 400 AD, they said, "Oh, it's no big deal. There's a little Yahweh. His name's Metatron. And you have the big Yahweh and the little Yahweh, and sometimes the little Yahweh comes to earth and does stuff. And in the Sodom and Gomorrah story, it's the little Yahweh who's on the earth, and it's the big Yahweh in heaven." 400 AD passes. You can imagine what Christians would do when they heard that argument. And in 400 AD, they said, "Look, anybody opens their mouth about Metatron, little Yahweh, not cool." And so after that, that became not, and it became, well, any God is an Elohim. And that's possible.
So where are the sons of God?
Where do the sons of God come in? That's a wonderful discussion. We need about 35 minutes to talk about it. But the point is, who is Jesus according to the New Testament? This is who Jesus is. John 1:1, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God," plurality. "And the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him. And without him not anything was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men." The light shines. John's quoting Genesis 1:1-5. And he's saying, you know that thing the rabbis could never explain to us? Let me tell you about the Word who's with God and who was God. Or, the person who wrote this had said the Shema 50,000 times by the time he wrote these words. You tell me what you find interesting. Concerning the eating of meat sacrificed to idols, we know that there is no idol in the world and that there's no God except one. Where's he getting that from? Shema. He said it 50,000 times. 8:5. For even if there are legomenoi theoi, so-called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, just as there are gods many and lords many, yet for us there is Theos, one God, the Father, from whom all things are, and we are toward him, and one Lord, Jesus Christ, through whom all things are, and we are through him. Paul has just split the Shema and applied half of it to God the Father and half of it to Jesus. Now, where in the world would he find plurality in the Shema? And what's Paul's answer going to be? Every single word in the Shema is plural except the word one. The God of the Bible is an I, equally, eternally, absolutely, who at the same time, equally, eternally, absolutely, is also a we. And you say, I can't understand that. I can't understand it either. But God's presenting himself as a he who is an Elohim. 3 words into the Hebrew Bible, you have a he who is plural. 6,000 times Elohim. 6,000 times Yahweh appears, but it's replaced with Adonai. 6,000 times.
What is the Hebrew for like angel of the Lord as opposed to angel? Just like, you know.
It's the word malak.
For both angel, like
Malak,
Elohim, and then
Malak, Adonai, yeah.
Okay.
And in Genesis 22, you have Elohim commanding. The Malak, Adonai, stops it. And the angel says, now I know that you fear Elohim because you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Wait, it's Elohim, but it's the angel who stops, and the angel speaks of Elohim in the third person, yet it's me, and it's like, wow, that is on every single page of the Hebrew Bible, that tension in Hebrew. It's not on every single page of the English Bible because there's no way to do it elegantly. In the beginning, he, that is Elohim plural, created the heavens and the earth. Nobody's going to buy that Bible.
And so,
And it,
they would have acknowledged that the angel of the Lord as different than like other angels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every-
back then they would have acknowledged it.
Every Jewish person who's ever read this has wrestled with it. And we have dozens of texts in antiquity where people are trying to explain it.
Spirit of God.
Why is the Spirit of God not mentioned in Genesis 1? And the odd thing, he is. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. V'ha'aretz hayita tohu v'abohu. And the earth was without form and void. V'hoshek al panei. And darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Ruach Elohim, the Spirit of God. And Elohim isn't Elohim. So it isn't a dual. It's more than a dual. And then you have the Ruach of Elohim. It's like, what is that? And God's saying, like,
The Trinity right there.
you have the Trinity right there in the 2 verses. So, who is Jesus according? Oh, that's not the one I want. Who is Jesus according to the New Testament? Traditional historically Orthodox Christianity teaches that Jesus is fully God and fully man, two natures in one person forever. In the unity of his person and because of his human nature, Jesus fully experiences all things that make man man. He experiences coming into existence by conception, growing in wisdom, stature, favor with God and man. Jesus experiences ignorance, hunger, want, the physical limitations of a human body. At the same time, in the unity of his person and because of his divine nature, Jesus fully possesses eternality, omniscience, omnipresence, rightly receives worship, the application of Yahweh text to himself, even the application of monotheistic passages to himself. Jesus, as the God-man, completely experiences everything true of each nature without changing the essentials of those natures and without becoming two people in the process. So what does that mean? First, it demonstrates the power and purpose of his love. As Jesus was being cursed, he was at that very moment giving breath to those cursing. As he died in helplessness, Christ was at that moment the one holding together the nails which suspended him as the atoning sacrifice cursed on a tree. The same God who issued the Canaanite extermination curse was the same God who took that curse to himself to free the Canaanite woman, her demon-possessed daughter, and anyone else who would come to him by faith. Second, Jesus entirely shares the will of God to punish sin in a way that ultimately puts an end to sin. But he chooses a way that does not destroy contrite sinners who believe on him by faith. Jesus' infinitely worthy obedience purchased the possibility of salvation for everyone who wants forgiveness and rule. His infinitely worthy death actually takes away all the sins of each person who does come in helpless repentance. And third, Jesus can sympathize with our weakness. He knows temptation, being tempted in all ways that we are yet without sin. He knows the betrayal of friends, the hypocrisy of false teachers, the unfaithfulness of his beloved. Jesus knows what it feels like to be emotionally abandoned. He knows the dark night of the soul. As our high priest is able to save us to the uttermost, Jesus chose to incarnate and join two natures in one person forever. May we live our lives in thankfulness to him today. So I'll see you in about 6 weeks, and we'll dive into the book of Ephesians.